people to Florida aligned and the Western forces of Texas and California. Lion Runner with reviews and revisits. Some reviews and revisits both on YouTube and Instagram. And we're going to get into this movie, Civil War. It's been number one at the box office the last 2 weeks. Here I am on Instagram, reviews and revisits. And we are going to check out, I'm going to kind of talk through what I wrote for my written review of Civil War. And you can see as I state here, this is definitely worth the watch. This movie, while not connecting for everyone, has something to say worth hearing if you're willing to listen. Now, a lot of people aren't trying to hear what this movie has to say. There's basically been some stark opinions coming down on both sides of the ledger. But I think this movie has some real depth for us to explore. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my viewing of it. It was cinematically beautiful to watch. The sound engineering was great. And it was very crisp and clean and effective. It was used as kind of another character in the movie, I felt like, but I think that's very good for this type of movie because it gives you a kind of real inside feel of the sights and sounds of being on the war front and being at these terrorist bombings and all of these various actions that are happening that are very disconcerting to the spirit if you were having to experience it in real life. So therefore, maybe it's also disconcerting kind of experience it even through the screen and through the sound. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Please take a moment to help me out here, help me move through the algorithm. I'd appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification. Thanks. So, what it has to say, it doesn't take political sides the way a number of kind of partisan political people wanted to jump on a bandwagon when the movie was just in previews and say it's a Hollywood movie about Civil War. It must be taking the side of the Libby Libs, and it has to be this kind of hardcore leftist political slanted propaganda item. But as I pointed out, I did a review, a kind of a preview, weeks in advance of this movie coming out. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. Yep, here it is. And in that review, I reviewed some kind of a preview actually of movies that were going to be coming out. One of the previews was for Civil War. I do these periodically. I might have one up in the next couple, hopefully before Thursday. Let me see. Well, we'll see. So this one is, I said regarding Civil War, I said this one is very intriguing to me. While some have jumped to conclusions that it's going to be a movie down the lines of real life partisan politics, I surmise that's not the case, as California and Texas are on the same side, succeeding from the Union together. Interested in what the fault lines of political division that will be explored here, hopefully through allegory and not on the nose politics. So that's what I wrote 6 weeks before the film came out. All right, about five, maybe it was approximately 6 weeks. So as I kind of recounted that here, and then was talking about, I was right and I was wrong. I was right on the whole. There are no sides being taken politically per se. There's no modern politics that are at the center of this movie. But I was wrong because there wasn't a political fault line that was intriguing allegory to me in the way I wanted. What instead the movie did was to not make the movie about political sides and what the political issue was. The movie was about what violent political disagreement taken to its greatest ends does to people in a society, what it does to, as you can see with the arc of the journalist and how they're changed and what we see with the journalist at the end. And there will be spoilers in this review. So I'll try to note when I get to the spoilers if you want to keep watching listening and watching this video for right now. But at some point, I will drop some spoilers. But we can see in what happened with the journalist that lets you know that there are really no good guys in this movie, because the movie is really, I think I have to say this because of some things that the director has said. I think he does intend that, well, I know he does intend that we see the president as a tyrannical dictator, but what political side he's coming from, is not known or understood. And even the fact that the director says that we're supposed to understand that, there's nothing in this movie that really makes that clear. That's just his perspective. He said because California and Texas teamed up, we should have figured out that meant that the president was at fault for there being the war, which is ridiculous. There's no reason for us to understand that. I was hoping there would be more of an allegory and some kind of intriguing political fault lines that the movie would fall to. The reason why I was believing that California and Texas could teaming up could provide for a really intriguing and interesting uh, plot and line of intrigue is because I was thinking, all right, you have these two politically different and distant states teaming up to fight against the government and both wanting to succeed. I was thinking that meant they were going to be succeeding based on political fault lines that are different from what normally in our modern politics, and that would be perhaps because these are two big states who are so large that either Texas or California, if they were to break away as individual nations, would be individually each one of the biggest countries in the world from an economic standpoint. And so I thought maybe that was an intriguing thing. This could be a thing about kind of class and power and economic power, and both states not wanting to be drugged down by the greater United States, wanting to do their own thing. They're both maybe in it together to succeed from the Union, but then we're going to go be their own individual states once they succeeded. It is not obvious that the reason they're teaming up is because the president's a tyrant. There's no way for us to know that through what is presented in the film. We only know that from listening to the director talk outside of the film. So he failed in that regard of trying to convey that was what he wanted to convey. But what the movie does present and can convey is compelling and gripping. What I kind of was noting here is a lot of people took issue with what the movie didn't do, that it didn't take an obvious hard political line and then negatively critique the movie for not being a different movie than what it is. This movie is doing what it's doing. It's not doing what you wanted to do. It's not even doing what I wanted it to do, which was have that intriguing political fault lines around California and Texas and why they chose to separate, even though they're from political opposite ends of the spectrum as states overall. And that's not what happened in the movie. Yet and still, I can recognize what was done with the movie was its own thing that was necessary and very pointed for us. So, every movie, as I state here, could be a different movie than what it is. And it being judged for not fitting one's ideal, not because it fell short on delivering on what you wanted it to do, but just because you wanted something else is a pretty strange critique. It's a really strange critique, and every movie could be a different movie if the plot was different. And if my aunt had a pair, she'd be my uncle. What does if it was something else have to do with anything? If something was something else, then it'd be something else. The movie is what the movie is. It had its purpose, and it delivered on it quite beautifully, and again, quite grippingly and quite pointedly. So that's what we're kind of getting with this film. So go on to talk about. Uh, my expectations going in were kind of set because I didn't go see it till about the fifth day it was out, and so I had heard some previews about what the movie was following and how it was going to follow some journalists, and it wasn't going to be in the politics of California and Texas separating weren't going to be specified. So I knew that by the time I got to my seat, and so I was prepared from that standpoint. But if I had listened to the naysayers, I'd be presently surprised, really, by what actually transpired on the movie screen, because people have said a lot of things that just are kind of ridiculous, and not seeing what is being conveyed to us in this film, which I think is a very strong experience. It's an on the ground human story that you get to experience again, kind of firsthand and through the lens of these journalists. And what that does for us is it gives us an opportunity to have this purview that we otherwise wouldn't get a chance to have, because the only other people who could be on the ground, on the scene for all of these things, moving around to these different uh, fronts in the war would be the soldiers, which we also see there. But we're getting the movie through the lens of the photojournalist and through the other journalists who are writers as well. And we've seen you could have this movie be from the soldier standpoint, but again, that would make it a different movie. And we've seen that movie time and time again already anyway. So this was a fresh perspective and look and approach to how we take in um, the wars and the divide of a country and conflict on the front lines. Because the journalists have a reason to be there. Who else would have a reason to be there? The only other people who you could then look at would be just regular citizens or people on the ground, and it being from their point of view. But they would have no. Most regular people would have no reason to be moving around to these different war fronts. They'd be living wherever they're living, and you would get a more narrow view of. Oh, this is really good right here. When they were starting to travel to go towards DC, go towards Maryland or wherever they were going to loop to, and you could see where this normal cars on a normal highway have been bombed out. I thought that was pretty striking. But if you just had the movie be through the view of individual people, it'd be like the lady at the shop. She's just in her town having her one experience, and in her town, apparently, some of the non-state forces have captured that town. As you see when it goes through, when they walk out the store and see the soldiers, not even real soldiers, but men in regular clothes standing with high-powered rifles on top of the buildings outside. That all you would see would be that one perspective. But by having the journalists be the eyes of the audience, we get to be carried through all of these different scenes to the military base, to the different fronts, where the terrorist attack happens, onto the assault on DC. We wouldn't be able to see all of this if you just took somebody in their hometown and showed the war from their hometown. That could be a good movie too. That could make its particular point, but it wouldn't make the point that this movie is making, and it wouldn't demonstrate all of the things that this movie gives us the opportunity to demonstrate again, such as this scene where this guy, spoiler alert, starts shooting people based on them not being the right kind of American, or either not being an American in one case. In the other case, he wasn't the right kind of American. He apparently was getting ready to shoot some more people. Because again, I think that's kind of the point of the movie when we get so politically divisive and start to denigrate the other side for disagreeing with us. What we come to is to a point where my side are the real Americans or the right kind of Americans. Your side is not. And then we end up doing this, which is killing each other in the same country, and violently divided and at risk of taking down this experiment in democracy. And some people, this is just not moving to them. They don't really care. They want a fun action movie or something that is kind of handed to you on a plate in a typical manner that you would get a war movie or an action movie. But that's not what this film does. This film takes you into a place of depth. And I'm stopping here, coming back to this part, because this is the part that really captures the movie, where some of the journalists, they've parked for the night on their trek. They're sitting, it seems like at a rail yard or somewhere, abandoned area in an open field, and they're looking way off into the distance to the city, and you see the missiles flying back and forth. And it looks like it's like they're watching fireworks on the 4th of July. But these are live missiles going back and forth between the state and government forces over top of towers in what looks like a downtown part of town. And during that part is when the essence of the movie is captured by something that is said by Kirsten Dunst's character, or Lee. And here it is. I put a picture of it with the caption or the quote into my written review. She's been a photojournalist. She's been a war journalist overseas. So now she's doing war journalism back home in America, where we've never had war on our own soil in our lifetimes. We haven't had war on our own soil, I guess, since Pearl Harbor, and that was just on one island. We really haven't had anything since what? I'm trying to think the War of 1812, maybe sometime after that. I'm trying to think. The Mexican American War was before that. Yeah, I think the War of 1812 was the last significant war on American soil. So, not having seen this here in America, but having been a war correspondent, seeing this in other countries, she says, every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a warning back home. Don't do this. But here we are. And that's the what one of the main essence of the movie is. Just how almost everybody, particularly people who have negatively reviewed it, just completely missed that is a bit mind-boggling to me. It's like you didn't watch the movie. It's what it's kind of what I get from like you were there, but you weren't there. And the other part of the movie, and here I'm going to get to some spoilers that really shows the essence of the movie. There's a couple of things when they go to that gas station to get the gas, and the guys there with the guns who are not soldiers, local guys who are now, I guess, running that town because the government in that area has collapsed. And the young journalist, the young photojournalist, goes down and sees those guys being hung, but they're still alive. And a guy comes up behind her. One of the guys who was holding down the gas station has his rifle, and he starts just talking about they stole some stuff. Now now they're going to be punished. We're going to think about how long we're going to keep them up here. Should we kill them or let them live? And then he's kind of mocking the guys, and he's like, the one of the guys is talking to him, trying to bloody and hanging from from this kind of car wash. I think it was. Yeah, it was the kind of hollowed out car wash, and he's like, yeah, I went to high school. The gunman's like, yeah, I went to high school with that guy. But he's so desensitized and so far gone in this, again, kind of political self-righteousness and division. This is what kind of violent political rhetoric and the constant dehumanization of each side leads to, till we get to the point where even people we know, we're willing to treat them with such cruelty and be so indifferent and kind of have this mocking attitude about it. So that's a piece of it. And then, so that's one show of how people are become desensitized. When they go to that store, I was stopped where I stopped before, where the lady, she's just indifferent about the fact that there's a civil war going on in the country. And she's just kind of, they're kind of in this 50 store, it's like a throwback store, and they're just living like it's Mayberry. But then when the journalists go outside and look up, and they see that there are gunmen on the roof, and basically that this town is under a dictatorship, is what you can surmise at that point. And then I think the final piece here, that's what she's going to see the guys hanging. That's what she's looking at here. The final piece that really encapsulate what the film is that some people talked about the journalist and how, oh yeah, the liberals, of course they made the journalists the heroes. The journalists are the protagonists in the movie. But if you watch this movie to the end, these journalists clearly aren't heroes. The death that they watch happen in front of them, again, big spoiler alert, you can maybe go ahead and leave now if you don't want to get spoiled. If you want to still see the movie, I would say this is the part to drop off because I'm going to make a point here. When Lee pushes the young girl out of the way to save her life because she's running out there being too rambunctious, and she gets shot and falls on the girl, and all the girl does is care about taking her picture. Then she throws Lee off on the ground. This is supposed to be her hero, and she runs to go get the shot of the president and could care less about the fact that Lee just risked her life for this chick. Doesn't even want to see if she maybe might survive or have some kind of solemnity for her death, having saved her life. The coldness of this bright, bushy-eyed, idealistic young girl to go from to where she was shell-shocked at seeing men being tortured early on to now through this process, she's unmoved even by her friend, mentor, and hero being murdered for her benefit. And then when you get into the Oval Office and the writer, he doesn't care that this man is about to be assassinated right in front of him. It means nothing. All he cares about if he gets his quote. And he says, "Don't let him kill me." And he's like, "That'll do." And he's like, "He's good." He's like, and basically telling the soldiers, "Go ahead and you can kill him now. I got my quote." This is what kind of this devolved into political dehumanization of the other side leads to. Uh, you could look at a movie like Hotel Rwanda, based on the real life situation that happened in Rwanda with the Tutsis and Hutus, where these people who are ethnically basically the same, physiologically the same people, but made differences in themselves based on tribal group that they belong to, and decided that they were somehow fundamentally different people when they are physiologically, ethnically the exact same people, and based on just some made up differences, um, dehumanized one group, dehumanized the other, till they genocided uh, people, their neighbors, their friends in their own town, and genocided and murdered them by the tens of thousands over a couple week period. And you think that, oh, how those people do they do that over there? That can't happen here. And I think this movie is just trying to show, yeah, it can. This is how you devolve into that. And seeing that unfold and develop, I think was done quite masterfully. And this movie deserves a lot of credit for that. This is a very good film. I don't know if it's a great film, but this is a very good film. It's a very important one. It's a highly important type film to be made. It's high concept. It's something you don't see every day. We need to have this kind of variety of film. Um, Everything is not about having fun. That was another thing I mentioned in my written review. If you want to go check out the final part of it, I would say go and read the last slide of the written review on review and revisits. I did have it up for a little bit in this video, but I'd appreciate it if you gave me a like and subscribe here, and then subscribe and follow me on Instagram, where I'm a lot more active with regular reviews weekly, multiple times a week, versus here I might only get something up once a week or so on YouTube. Lion Runner, out of here with this one. Catch you on the next one. Like and subscribe. Thanks.